Welcome to the Say Yes Movement podcast with Heather and John. Hey, morning, Heather. How are you doing?
Good morning, John. You've got your extra energy on this Friday. I love it. Where is all this energy coming from? How do I get some of it? Yes.
Yeah, it's coming from the sunshine. Actually, I got out this morning. I went for a run just before the sunrise, and there's something to be said about being out there with the sunrise, right? Most of the times we get up, and yeah, it was just great to be in that energy, just to be outside in nature. Today, actually, I got to run in a t-shirt, so t-shirt and shorts, and I'm like, ooh, it's April, and it was amazing. Just to be out there, to experience it, and to just be in it. So yeah, no, that's where my energy is coming up from this morning. And what about you? Where's your energy coming from this morning?
Same thing. Spent so much time outside yesterday, and it's funny. Me and my husband were sitting outside by the fire. We had a fire going in the backyard yesterday, and he looked over at the plants and he said, "I think the plants have grown from this morning when I raked the leaves off of them till now." So, like, we could even see that the plants were happy around us. So it was really magical just to notice those things and notice, the leaves are coming alive. Everything's coming alive, and we heard kids playing on the street. It's just this good weather is really changing everyone's mood, and take advantage of it. Use it to your advantage.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like even keeping the windows open, hearing the birds chirping first thing in the morning. Man, you forget how much you miss the simple things when they're not around. And now that they're here, it's like for me at least, there's a much greater appreciation for just, being and aware of it. And, this month for me is gratitude month. And yeah, just expressing gratitude for that, expressing gratitude for experiencing some sunshine on my face, right? So it's been really, really good. Really, really good. I'm really happy about that. So yeah, no. So this week we're talking about communication. We're talking about gratitude, and I know. Listen, recently you just posted something yesterday. You want to share that news with everybody?
Oh my goodness, John! Thank you. Yes. So I was honored through the International Association for Top Professionals as Empowered Women of the Year, and then they actually put me on the cover of their magazine and did an editorial spread with 4 or 5 pages. And John, actually, thank you to you. Many of those pictures that are in the editorial spread are the ones that you took. So I really appreciate the support that you give me with that. But I actually got that magazine about 3.5 weeks ago, and I didn't post it as soon as I got it. It's kind of sat there, and I had to really absorb that I'm on a cover of a magazine. And in my post yesterday that I shared with everyone, I shared what was coming up for me, and what was coming up for me was imposter syndrome. And this is one of those things that people talk about, and then when it shows up for you, you're like, oh yes, this is what it feels like. And it kind of stops you in your tracks. So I sat on that post for quite a while, and I'm being vulnerable and authentic when I say that I wasn't even sure yesterday if I should put it out there.
Heather, I know the feeling. I know I shared this with you a couple of months ago, where I showed my transformation picture online with people, right? There's just something to be said about, feeling comfortable, in your own skin, doing because of the things that you're doing. And today is Friday. So one of the things we do is we celebrate our week, right? Through today's talks. But yeah, no, imposter syndrome shows up, I think, for all of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
To some degree. And even, it just does. It just shows up, and it's like, oh, should I, shouldn't I? And if you're faced, if you're faced with the question of should I, you should say yes. Say yes to putting yourself out there. Say yes to, taking that step and really putting yourself out in a way to give yourself permission to be who you're supposed to be. And I think that's the important part, right? Like we forget who we are. There's that genuine, authentic piece of ourselves that we forget. And, one of the things I included in my affirmation is, I will be my authentic self each and every day. And I know. And sometimes it's hard to be authentic when there's so many things around you pushing you to want to be something else, right? Whether it's family, it's work, it doesn't matter what that one thing is. And that shows up when you're feeling like an imposter, because that's your authentic self, right? Your authentic self is not the imposter. your authentic self is the person who wants to show the world, this is what I've done. This is what
Mhm.
I've accomplished. And we don't, like, we make ourselves a lot smaller. And I know you've talked about that in the past as well. You show up big, right?
Well, and when you show up bigger and you step into who you are, you're actually influencing others to do the same. When we shy away from that, we're actually getting smaller and then inviting people around us to be smaller as well. So, shine bright, and those that want to shine will shine with you and beside you. And that's a really important distinction, because there will be people that will have other motives or feelings about it, and you can't let those people be the ones that impact you. I've gotten a few messages. I've gotten a lot of messages, actually, from people that I haven't talked to for ages, that there's no reason why we haven't talked, but this gave them a reason to reach out, and now we're having a two-way conversation. And they're beautiful messages, like, Heather, I love your sparkle and shine, keep bringing it alive. Just really beautiful messages that sparked from me stepping out of my comfort zone and into vulnerability and into celebration and just owning it, like Empowered Women of the Year. Yes, and how does an Empowered Women of the Year act? Well, she doesn't act small. She doesn't shy away from big things. She says yes to speaking on stages. She says yes to new coaching clients. She says yes to owning her own business. She says yes to these things that sometimes scare the shit out of me. So that's okay. And so I'm going to step into Empowered Women of the Year, because I have to act a lot differently than sometimes I am. I had to do more push-ups today because empowered women do more push-ups. So, use it as your strength, as your momentum. Use it in whatever way will empower you to be your best self. Because if you let imposter syndrome spend too much time in you, it'll stop you in your tracks. And in fact, it did stop me in my tracks. And I kind of just procrastinated. I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that. Oh, it's Friday. Oh, it's Saturday. I'm not going to do that post on those days. All kinds of excuses came to the surface. So, if you want to know if imposter syndrome is showing up for you, ask yourself, are you putting something off that you know that you can do and should be doing? Is there something in your life, at work? Is there a speech that you want to do? Is there a presentation that you have to do? If you're putting it off, probably some little piece of you is that imposter syndrome is showing up, and you don't think you're good enough. And guess what? You are good enough. Say yes to those things.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's a great reminder to just, put yourself out there. Like, that's what you're meant to do, right? And think about, if you didn't put yourself out there, Heather, right? Would you even have been on the cover of a magazine?
No.
Right. And, when you take those bold steps, I'm going to say bold because it's a big word, and it's it's one that's deserving of being said. It's things that you need to do to be bold, to put yourself out there in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, but deep down inside that those are the things that just feel right. Right. Like, I can only imagine, what it was like for you to be on stage to receive that award. It's like, wow, did I really do that? And I'm sure you went through that process. Like, am I really here? Am I? Yeah, you are.
Yes.
Yes, you did it. So, and what we've been talking about this week is really communicating, right? Communication, how to be an effective communicator, because it shows up in the way you communicate with the world, right? The messages
100%.
that you put out in the world, the things that you would think, maybe, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would never say that in public.
Well,
And now we're,
John, we
go ahead.
have a crazy goal this year. We want to impact 1 million people. Well, if that's truly what we are going after, we have to be on covers of magazines. How the hell are we going to get our message out there? Our podcast is one way. We're going to write a book together. It's going to be out there. We do our one-on-one coaching. We do our team coaching. There's all kinds of ways that we're looking to impact the world, but we actually need more people to help us with our ripple effect, help us with that communication. So I have to be on a cover of a magazine to help get that message. So it's not because I wanted to be on a cover of a magazine. It's because I want to make an impact on 1 million people this year. So go back to what your purpose is. Go back to what your authentic purpose is. And that will give you clarity on whether you should or shouldn't do something. And then you kind of get out of your own way. It's the same speech or the same methodology for when I'm doing speeches. I used to get really nervous and, stumble over my words and wonder, am I going to trip and fall? And then I realized, wait a minute, that's when it's about me. But when I make it about everyone in the audience or just one person in the audience, and by the way, the one person that I choose in the audience is someone that looks and sounds just like me maybe 6 months ago or a year ago, because I needed to hear the messages that I give out to the world right now, at some point in my life. That's how we teach. We learn something and then we teach it to the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. So when I made it not about me and I made it about the impact that I want to make on the world and the legacy I want to leave, it changes everything. And then imposter syndrome is just that. It's just in the way and you just step over and move on.
No, absolutely. And I just want to, hey, big shout out to Liz. Thank you for tuning in. She's saying yes. It's beautiful. I love it. You're right. You step over, and this is what we're going to be covering in our upcoming webinar that's going to be hosted on the 27th at noon. Yeah. We're going to be talking about effective communication, right? How do you step out of being in a place where you don't show up powerfully? And actually you already let some of our content out, right? It's not about you. When it comes to presentations and talks, it doesn't matter if you're a leader, it doesn't matter if you're a parent. It's never about you. It's always about the person receiving the message, right? And I love what you just said, that person in the audience that looks and sounds like you from 6 months ago, a year ago, what's the message that they need to hear? It's funny because one of the things I talk about as a success measure when it comes to public speaking, I just want to impact one person in the room. It doesn't matter if the room has 5 people, 10 people, 1,000 people. It's all about impacting that one person. Yeah. When you take that in as a focus, the fear will start to dip a little bit. Like you'll start to feel less nervous because it's not about you, right? It's not about you. It's really about you delivering a message that's already within you. And a lot of the times when people deliver messages, they deliver talks, they deliver workshops, presentations, whether they're at work or to, community groups, it's all about delivering something that you already know. So if it's all something you already know and you can have a perfect conversation about it somewhere else without any notes and PowerPoints and all that stuff, you can do that anywhere.
100%. 100%.
So, and I love that we're going to be able to share this with everybody. I love that we're going to be taking the moment, we're going to be taking that session to walk through it, to say here, like point by point, like we've done it. Like, I don't even know how many talks you and I have done at this point, but I think we're into the thousands, right? Just from, the podcast and interviews and other things.
We might have our 10,000 hours. We might, I'm not sure. But there was a point when we didn't have our 10,000 hours and I'm still, attending seminars, just attending workshops, learning from the best, seeing the tiny little tweaks that I want to do, because there's still another person that I want to impact. And there's still another person I want to grow up into to be the best speaker, the best impactor that's possible. When we talk about that one person we want to influence, and for me, I use someone that looks and sounds like me because I'm teaching what I needed to hear. It's so impactful because I can then have empathy, compassion. I can feel how they feel. And I can actually think the thoughts that they thought at that time because I already had those thoughts myself. And so when you're trying to connect on an emotional level, these are the things that are so important. And I hear people, and John, I know you've heard the same thing from your clients, I don't have anything to speak about. Why would I be the one that should share the story? And the answer is every single person has a story in them. They have lessons that they've learned, experiences that they've had, and sharing those stories is so powerful. John, we talked to a couple of sessions ago about rituals and food. And I got a beautiful message from a old client of mine around how that actually impacted him because it reminded him of his dad and food and the rituals that they had. And guess what? I'm having a coffee date with him this afternoon. So, the connection that we make when we teach people and share our own stories then leads us down some other new paths. And we never know where those paths are going to go. But I know I've got a wonderful coffee date this afternoon with that same person. And, you know, he didn't need to reach out. He could have just experienced it and moved on. But he really wanted me to know that impacted him. So you never know what part of your story is going to impact someone else either. So just share it all.
Yeah. Actually, you know, as you're saying that, what I'm hearing is a good call to action for today. Right. So in the spirit of gratitude, in the spirit of giving back, in the spirit of communication, what's the one thing that you've heard from somebody that's resonated with you? And how can you share a simple thank you, maybe a connection, maybe reaching out, saying hello, or even saying, you know, I loved how how that resonated with me, just as a way to give back. Right. Like, so I think there's a lot of times where we get out there, we put out messages, and I've seen it, right? Like walking through the hallways. You know, in my former organization, there was a speech I gave, you know, years ago, and somebody walked through the hallways. They're like, "You're the guy who gave that speech on this," and I still remember that line. It was so funny, and I'm like, "What?" So your impact is not, you know, it's beautiful when somebody lets you know the impact that you've had on them, right? That's another way of communicating back to them as well, right? Just letting them know that what they said resonated with you. Let them know how it impacted you. And I'm sure when you received that email or that message from that person, you were like, what? Like, really? It did that? Like, we don't even know what we put out into the world, how it's going to sit and resonate with people until people let us know how it's going. So, you know, that's your call to action today. Let somebody know, somebody that's impacted you through whether it's a speech, a presentation, a talk, something, and just let them know how it sat with you.
And we've all got that person, right? We've got that person that when we need a message, we can hear their voice. We can actually close their eyes. We can hear their voice and the words that they've said to us, sort of be our own cheerleader in our heads. And, you know, we have different people for different things that we need. And, you know, for John, you're in my head right now. It's like, I was going to do 20 push-ups, and now it's like, you got to get to 25. So it's like, okay, do one more today, one more. You've got this. And so I've just attached your voice to that cheerleader because it's easy. I talk to you all the time. I know what your voice sounds like, and it's empowering. It's encouraging. So these are, you know, pick the person that you can just instantly hear their words when you need to hear those words. And that's who you want to reach out to and let them know, because you're right, John. You know, me and you have both got messages like that. It is the most loving act. I almost tear up. I do tear up when I get these messages, and it doesn't matter how many messages I get. Every single one of them is super, super special. So if you've got someone in your life that has done this for you, send them that message, let them know. And it's a great reason to reach out on a Friday.
Yeah. And actually, you know what? And I want to preface this because some people might be thinking, the thought that just crossed my mind, well, maybe, you know, this one person doesn't want to hear from me. Or maybe this person, like, who am I to reach out to this person to let them know? You know, and the beauty is it doesn't matter who that person is. So it could be somebody within your circle. It could be somebody within your organization. It could be somebody that's out there in the world, like a big celebrity. Right. And, you know, I've personally set notes to people like, you know, Jen Sincero, Tony Robbins. There's speakers. Darren LaCroix is a speaker in the Toastmaster world that I follow and admire, and I've sent notes to them. And it's amazing what happens when you do that, because sometimes they don't. You know, there's a good chance, depending on who they are and how big they are, they might not respond. But when they do respond, and I have received those responses, oh my gosh, like it's like, really, like. Everybody needs to hear it. Everybody doesn't matter who you are.
John, right? My favorite story of my whole life. Sarah McLachlan is my favorite singer of all times. I've gone to all of her concerts. I actually, and I didn't shy away from it. I entered a contest and I won because of the story I told about, I was authentic and vulnerable about how my dad shines on in my life, even though he's passed. And it was based on her album called Shine On. And guess what? I won. And I was on stage with Sarah McLachlan. So don't shy away from crazy stuff. Don't think, why me? Who am I to be this person? Instead, stand in yourself and say, yes, I am the person that's going to do this. And I took the time to write that story. It was from the heart. And me and my sister got to be on stage with Sarah McLachlan. She sang us 2 songs while we were on stage with her. It was so intimate. It's like, it's one of my highlights of my whole life. And nothing can top that, really.
Yeah,
Honestly.
I can see the visual. I remember seeing the picture that you shared with everybody. It's like, so and it comes back, right? Like it comes back to where we started with an imposter, right? Like if you feel like an imposter, you're not going to step out of the box that you're in. You just, like, the way to break out of that imposter syndrome is just to do it.
Well,
And
and
who
guess
knows?
guess what? I had put on my bucket list that I wanted to make 1,000 people laugh. I'm not a comedian. I don't do funny things on stage. And me and my sister were hamming it up like there was no tomorrow. We jumped on that stage like we were like kids at a candy store, and we had the whole audience roaring. It was at the, I forget which theater it was, but there's like 2,500 people. So I like doubled my goal. I'm like, I made 2,500 people laugh hysterically, but we were just having such a good time giggling and being playful. And so,
Yeah.
also it was authentic to who I wanted to be and some of my bucket list items. So I knocked like a whole bunch off that night.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Break out of your imposter syndrome, go out, express some gratitude, and share it with somebody out there that really needs to hear it. Doesn't matter who they are. And even if you feel like they don't need to hear it, they need to hear it the most, right? So just get out there and communicate and be your authentic self. And I think this is where we're sitting with today. It's just be authentic as you go into the weekend. Be authentically you. And people are going to like you for that. So don't shy away from it. Embrace it. Step into it and love it. All right. So, Heather, that is it. We're going to share the link for our upcoming communications workshop webinar on the 27th as well. We'll include the link below. For those of you that follow us on LinkedIn, we're just going to add you to the invitation, and we'd love to have you come and be a part of that and really understand the secrets of really communicating more effectively. All right. So that is it for this episode of the Say Yes Movement podcast. Wishing you all a great one. And remember, when you shift your mindset, you shift your life. Have a great one, everybody. Take care.